As per requested, sharpening a Dalstrong on my Ruixin, my Ruixin 009. It's a nice looking blade, feels pretty solid. Some nice detailing on it. Not sure if that's real wood or fake wood. Anyway, on we go. Tape in here to protect the blade, top and bottom. 3D printer running in the background. And from now on you'll just hear the music as I work away. First stone I'll be starting with the 80 grit to set the bevel so it doesn't take as long. I can remove metal faster. Put the stone in. Set the angle of the bevel. They're raising and lowering this device, this part, the blade guide holder. Sit her there for a second. I had been just setting my phone on here to get my angle, but too many times I've needed the phone for other things when I wanted to do that, so I went out and purchased a cheap, accurate, scale level guide. Set it on, let it turn on. Hit 0, hold it for 3. Now keep moving. Let go. Nope. 0 the gauge. Take the guide, sit it on, hold it flat, hold it in, hold it still, let it go, finds the 0. Set her down, put your guide rod in, your stone on it. Make sure you've got your stone on it and this gauge set the same, and sit your guide on here and just lower this till you get the angle you want. And this knife I'm going to go for right around the 20. Very fine increments up and down. It'll be hit or miss, minus or less. And from there we get started. I always oil my stones. Although they're diamond stones, they say you don't need it. Use one for 1 day without oil, and use one for 1 day with oil. You'll find out the one with oil didn't wear out on you. The other one did. Before I start, and I put a black felt marker line on it so you can see where I'm grinding. It'll give me an idea if I've got too much of an angle or just about the right angle. If you take too much off, you're at the wrong angle, not the appropriate angle. I do a few passes. My eyes are crap, so I use this little magnifier to see right down to the bevel. I don't know if the camera's picking it up or not. But you want the very edge here to be shiny. And then you just change angle until it's shiny here, but it's shiny all the way across the whole bevel. If it's not shiny across the bevel, you're cutting too deep, cutting too steep. Got to lower it back down a little bit so you're not removing just the edge. A lot of controversy online whether you should be pushing or pulling, I'll tell you one thing, when you've pulled it, you've never cut yourself. But if you're ramming it like this and you miss, these things become obsolete. They get deleted. So I like to draw the stone across toward me. Rather than putting metal into the metal, I take the metal away. If your blade you're working on is really long, you may have to tilt this a little bit to get all the way to the end. Then you'll find where the sweet spot is to do the whole blade. Even long blades, like this is a 14-inch blade or maybe more, I'm not even sure. Okay, it's only a foot. Looks like 14 inches, but we're men. Anyway, so it's a 12-inch blade. This is the Ruixin Pro 009 model knife sharpener. It does not come with these diamond stones from factory. You usually get a composite stone, which is fine. I mean, it'll let you do a knife or two before you find out that they're garbage. There's lots of different stones in the market, and a lot of them work really good, and a lot of them are real crap. I buy a set of these stones from 80 grit up to 3,000 grit. Cost me about 28 bucks. I do this as a side hustle, so I'm doing this a lot. Today I have 8, 12, 16 knives to do in total. I can do that probably a dozen times before I need to replace a couple of the stones. This guy, like I say, he's an 80 grit. He does all my hard work. He reshapes the blade, the bevel. He does all the cutting. The other ones, they just fix what this one did. He puts in scratches, but he takes off metal. You can probably hear that. That is a heck of a bevel all the way across. So, this is a hanger, holds your arm up. You pull this toward you, rotate the blade. Let it off. Then I always remove the oils from the other side for the simple reason that those oils are carrying probably little particles of diamond, but they're also definitely carrying metal. The shavings will get removed off the blade as you're pulling it back and forth, but they get dropped here and you don't really want that. So I'm going to carry on like this, and I'll get back to you when I change stones. Okay, so that's been about a minute on this side now. And if you've done any sharpening at all, you know what a burr is. It's when you pull the metal off this way, it hangs, kind of like a pop can. You have to wiggle it back and forth to break it off, but as you're sharpening, you're creating a burr, which is moved steel. I like to feel all the way along because sometimes you'll get a kink in the blade you can't really see, but a flat diamond stone will feel it, and it'll skip over it because it's a flat diamond stone. Just make sure it's all been touched, then switch stones. I'm going to jump right to my 240 stone. This is an old stone that I've had. You can probably see that there's pretty much a diamondless spot here because I started with this stone not using oil. They say you don't need oil, you don't need to lubricate it, and you don't to make it to work. However, if you don't use lubrication, the diamonds just get yanked right out of there. You just want to skid across the surface of the diamonds. You don't want to gouge them out. That's another defect too. When you push your stone in, you can gouge into it. It's very hard to remove anything from your stone if you're pulling back this way. But when you put this along a very sharp tapered edge already, it's there. If you don't think that removes stuff, you've got mental problems. Anyway, this stone has this much good use and a little bit at the back here. So I keep using. I've got two brand new ones, but this one still keeps cutting like crazy, so I'm going to continue. As you notice, I flipped the knife over again because I always start each new stone on the same side that I started with. So I never mistake whether I've done the right stone to each side, so no confusion. A little bit of oil, rub it in. It helps the blade not remove the diamonds. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. As you progress in finer stones, you have to do less passes per side with each stone. For the reason is the first stone that I used is the one that's removing the metal, reshaping the bevel of the blade. These stones progressively just remove the scratches that the previous stone made. That previous stone, like I said, was an 80 grit. I do have a 120 grit as well, but right now I decided to go to 240 and remove some more bevel before doing the polishing part, which is the last 4 stones that I use are basically just polishing, or what I like to call polishing. It's removing the scratches. And because I started on this side, I should be able to feel a bevel, or the burr again, which got removed when I did the other side. So now I've done it again on this side with another stone. The burr is back again. I'm sorry for the background noise, but I got a 3D print that's going for on day 2.5 now, so message me if you want to see what that is. Anyway, I'm going to switch stones and carry on. Oh, actually switch sizes and carry on. I had a fella emailing me ask, I 3D printed these cases out. These are the stones that come with most versions of this sharpener when you order it. And they do work, but not for all long. Because the high carbon steel is harder than these stones are. So the high carbon steel knives will just remove the stone. I 3D printed these cases to hold my Ruixin stones. I have five boxes like this. But I had a client ask me to look into sharpening a Dalstrong knife, whether they were worth buying or not off Amazon. I will tell you there is definitely some carbon in this steel, because you can tell fairly simply by there's not a lot of flexibility in it. A low carbon steel will flex like a fillet knife flexes. There's not a lot of carbon in a fillet knife as a rule. But anyway, this is the Omega series from Dalstrong. They're available on Amazon. I don't get plugged to say this, but I was going to buy one just for finding out what they're like. But I had a customer bring this, and so here we go. I'm switching right now to a 600 grit stone as well. No, oh, that's a 2000 grit. That would have sucked. They have numbers up top here. I don't know if you can see it or if the camera picks up. This is a 600. But again, it's been fairly well used. It's almost worn out. But if it keeps working, I keep using. So we'll switch to the 600 grit now. I'll switch, switch back to the original side again. Make sure there's no oil or filings from the previous stone. And there's no burr on this side because we just flipped it over, so we'll give her the oil. Then we'll give her the beams. The stone 600 grit is usually on most kitchen knives where I'll stop, simply because it's removed all the gouges. On more expensive knives, or people that actually care whether their knife is shiny and flashy, I'll go to 1000 grit. On my own knives, I'll go up to 3000 grit, because the knives I carry or the knives I have are pretty much an advertising tool for what I do as well. So it doesn't make them any better at cutting. Just makes them look shinier, flashier. Makes it look like you care. So unfortunately my recording device doesn't have a real good macro ability to it. But that is a seriously nice bevel on that side. Flip her over, do the same. Remove any junk from the previous side. Back at her. I'll pick it up when I'm ready to flip again. I've had people contact me and ask me about this sharpening device. It's a Ruixin. It's pronounced Ruixin, but it's spelled R-U-I-X-I-N. If you order one, it won't come like this. I've discovered what weaknesses it has. They're not really weaknesses, just could have been better. Like this screw here that holds the angle, this will turn. If you turn it back and forth, this will loosen off and it can go up and down. Changes your bevel angle. So what I've done is I went online and ordered these collars. They fit exactly over. This, you can use this as well. It also slides directly over, which is what I've done down there. And I tighten this up and it just gives this something to sit on so it can't move out of the way. Because when I do my blades, I want both sides exactly the same bevel. There's no point in sharpening a knife if both sides are not the same. I've had knives that had a 25-degree bevel on one side and an 18-degree bevel on the other side. That doesn't put the business end of that knife in the middle of the steel. Moves it off to the side. So anyway, on to the next stone. Pick you back up in a minute. Okay, this is again another older 1000 grit stone. Got a brand new 2000 grit stone, and you can see the comparison of what they look like. They change color, of course, as you use them. They wear down. So anyway, I'm going to finish the knife off now with 1000 grit because it's a Dalstrong. The guy bought this knife thinking he's got a really good knife, and I can not disprove that. I have no idea. So either way, he thinks it's nice. So I'm going to give him a nice polished, shiny mirror finish on the edge here, and it will be hair popping sharp. By hair popping, I mean you can shave your arm with it. It'll slice whatever you want. Again, like I said, I'm at 20 degrees with a bevel on this. A pocket knife is usually around the 25 degree, 22 to 25 degree bevel. A really high-end kitchen knife would be around 17 to 15 degrees bevel. That makes them really sharp. The downside is if you drag that thing across the chopping block a few times, you'll lose your nice shiny sharp edge. This is one of the flaws with it. This screw that holds a rotating ball in place, it will back off. So it'll back off enough that that ball will come out of the back because it just sits in. So what I did is I cut a piece of tin to fit over the edge. It slides just over the back side, so it hangs over the ball on this side. Tighten it down and then it can't push it out. It still loosens up because I won't use thread lock because I take it apart and clean it. This is how I do the finished strokes on a knife. And now I bring this right up here and do the knife as close as possible, and then I pull it back and do it again. Pull it back and do it again. The reason is when you go like this, you're touching different parts of that blade again. So I want to make sure that all of it is getting the scratches removed. When I'm done this knife completely, I'll take my camera and try and zoom in on it a little better so you can see what it finishes look like. One thing you have to remember when you're using this system, it doesn't care. If you bump into it, if you go to reach for something, this blade is facing you. It's got one job, and that's cut whatever gets in its way. It doesn't matter if it's you or your food. Ask me how I know. I do some pulling strokes. Sometimes I'll isolate it and I'll move along, do an inch at a time, which is really good for isolating. If you find a scratch that's been left or missed, you can isolate that spot by pulling across. And then I start as close as I can. The closer you are here, the closer to this very, very apex of the edge that you clean up. That's where the burr is left behind. So I do as much as I can to move that, and I just slowly pull the stone out and do back and forth passes until just the very edge of this stone is being used at the top. Sometimes you'll drop it and you'll run the blade along the edge, but it's going into plastic. You're not really doing it any harm. You might have to give it another pass to put the shine back on it. Alright, so that's typically the end. of the sharpening process. I have to say I'm pretty happy with how this steel Dalstrong knife, how the steel, like, I'm not advertising for Dalstrong, I'm just using the name because that's what it is. It does a pretty good job of taking an edge. I don't know how long it's going to last because I don't know what the carbon content of the steel is. I know some of their stones, or their knives, I think they are listed as 60 Rockwell hardness, which is actually really, really good. Careful when you're cleaning out. Just removing some of the oil so I can get in a little bit closer. I don't know if there's an angle that works good, but I just accidentally ran my thumb across that bevel, and that sucker is sharp. Grab my strop and I'll be right back. Alright, I have two strops. This is the paddle one I use. It's loaded with polishing compound. I just overdid it because I heated it up with a candle to get it on, and it went on, but really thick. Which matters not. It's going to come off. That's not a big deal. That is the one strop I use in my shop. This strop was made for me. Well, it was given to me by the creator. And that is Earth and Hide. And this is a double-sided as well leather strop. I have it hanging from my workshop, and when I go to markets, this is what I use for stropping. I do all my razors on this one. Standard knives I use on this because it's more controllable. I can decide how much force I'm going to use on it. With this one, because it's so flexible, you can't really delegate and keep it flat at the same time. There's others. There's better. For me, it all boils down to what does it cost? How much does it save me? Because I'm doing this all day, every day. So you've probably seen 1,000 times how to strop. Take your knife, try and find the same angle that you used, like the space between the blade and the strop. Like when you set your bevel here, you want to also do the same. You want to try and keep it as close as possible. The whole point is, if you sharpen at a 20 degree, say this, if we said this was 20 degrees, and you strop it at 30 degrees, well, you're going to just destroy the edge you just made on that knife. It'll just wear it down. But if you go down from 20 down to like 17 or 15 degrees, you're not actually touching the apex. You're rubbing the steel back here, not on the apex edge. So try to guesstimate that. Sometimes it takes a little practicing. And I always draw it away. Draw it toward me. Draw it away. Trying to match the same bevel. If you're off a little bit, like a degree or two, it's not devastating. It might take you more strokes to get the burr removed. This is specifically to remove the burr. Imagine the burr like the lid of a pop can. You have to roll it, flip it back and forth to make that lid handle come off. That's basically what a burr is. It's just used up steel that's hanging onto the edge. And yes, I have got oil on this knife, and I have now got polishing compound on it. But I also have rubbing alcohol that all knives get after I'm done with them. But like I say, I do this all day, every day. There's a trade, or a view of thoughts on how many times you have to go back and forth to strop it, but it's also relative to the knife and the steel that's in a knife. Like a low carbon steel knife, the metal breaks off pretty easy because it doesn't have a lot of strength in it. High carbon steel, you would argue, well, it's easier, it should break brittle. It just doesn't. And if you need to sharpen or touch up your knife, during the week. If you have a strop like this, some compound, this is the coarse side that I use compound on. Now I'm flipping to the fine that hasn't got compound on it. Well, you can see marks, but that's from the compound that came off on the previous knife. Again, this will clean up that edge. It helps shine up and remove any imperfections on the apex of the blade that you just did. I can already feel. You can feel when you're on the side that's got the burr. Like this side had the burr and it was very rough. This side didn't have it. It was quite smooth. You go back and forth until they feel the same. And to me, that's good enough for most. Some people like show shine work done to their knives. Me, I just get them sharp for myself, but I don't know how close I can get in with that, but there is very much a mirror finish on this edge, on the apex of the blade. I'll grab a sheet of paper and see how it cuts. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. There it is. I don't know if the camera is picking that up or not, but it's shaving my arm, so I don't feel like I really need to do the paper test. I think you're convinced by now that this sucker is sharp. If you need to see it cut paper, let me know. You can see some of the polishing compound right on the apex of the blade there. I typically will find a hard surface like this, put a rag on it, and just draw it back slowly, making sure you're not cutting into the rag. So if you pull away from the rag, you don't slice the rag. And it pretty much removes all of the leftover wax from the polishing, the stropping. Now again, I will clean this with the rubbing alcohol, so it's sanitary. And I know some of you probably are not believers until you see it cut paper. To me, it's kind of a useless test, but it's a visual one that helps people think they know what they're getting. It's hard to line this up when you're looking through a phone, but this blade does not care about paper. Anyway, that's a Dalstrong. Customer requested me do one. Luckily, a customer brought me one in because I don't own one. Anyway, let me know what you think of this. Thanks, bye. FYI, if you've gotten this far, you'll have picked up on my mistakes or misworded things. And that's alright. I'm not a professional YouTuber. Anyway, that is the project done. I like it. It's kind of a nice knife. Has a good feel. There's definitely some carbon in this steel. It doesn't want to bend. Really nice finishing touch with the mosaic pin. I like it. The end.